The Truth Learning Spanish with Leo Misha. What is really hard for learning Spanish as an English speaker? These are the hardest mistakes that you will find when trying to learn Spanish as an English speaker. And you can find many mistakes, but these many mistakes that I talk about are the ones that we share in common in English and Spanish, but the ones that I'm going to talk about are the ones that we don't share or we hardly share in common. So the first one is confusing Spanish verbs ser versus estar. Ella es dormida. This example, ella es dormida. It's like saying she is asleep, but meaning that asleep is an adjective, It's like a characteristic of her. Ella es dormida. Okay, that sounds really weird. What you mean is ella está dormida. She is asleep. So you don't mean that she is asleep as a characteristic of her, but you mean that she is doing the action of sleeping. It's a verb, comes from a verb, from an action. Okay? So the next example here is mi vecino está amable. Okay, I've heard this before or something similar. Mi vecino está amable. Okay, what you really mean is mi vecino es amable. As you can see, most of the problems trying to learn Spanish comes from grammar. For example, here you can find this example. I like paella very much. That's a correct sentence. But if you say yo me gusto la paella mucho, okay, that's incorrect. That sounds really weird. No matter where you try to find a context, no, it sounds bad. As you can see, most of the problems comes from grammar, not pronunciation. Pronunciation is really easy. For example, you can read here, me gusta mucho la paella. So it literally, you can read it, me gusta mucho la paella. It's really easy. In English, it's not the case. So if you want to say me gusta mucho la paella, just in case you don't know, paella is a well-known dish in Spain, and here in Latin America it's not so common, but obviously you can find it too. Okay, let's continue. Me gusta mucho la paella means I like paella very much. That's what you say. But if you want to say I like paella very much this way, yo me gusto la paella mucho. Okay, that's really bad. No matter the context, it's not forgiven. This is not forgiven. There are other examples that could be forgiven, like this one, mi vecino está amable, but this example is completely forbidden. It sounds really off, really bad. And the last hard issue that you will find when learning Spanish is the mistakes related with cultural meanings. For example, you want to say estoy emocionado, but you say estoy excitado. Okay, that means I'm horny. In most countries, that means that. Okay, you may say that. And in some context and with some people could work. But in most situations, it won't. So I suggest never say that. Something that is more probable that you may not find any misunderstanding is when you try to say tengo calor or I have heat. You can say tengo calor. It will be never misunderstood. But if you say estoy caliente, okay, again, that sounds like saying I'm horny. Again, you have to be careful. But you can say estoy caliente, but in a certain special context. For example, if you are with someone you trust a lot, like your mother, maybe, you can tell her Ma, estoy caliente. And she will say, ¿así? Ay, a ver, déjame tocarte. Creo que estás enfermo. It's like saying, Mom, I'm really hot. And she says, Really? Okay, let me touch you. I think you're sick. It's like saying that. So, in most of the contexts, you have to say tengo calor for I have heat. And if you really know what you are doing, you can say estoy caliente o estoy excitado o lo que quiera, lo que sea. Say whatever you want if you know what you are doing. So we can say that for learning Spanish, you have to know your grammar and also know your context. I highly suggest learning Spanish from just one country because it also depends of the country or the region where you are. So be really careful with that. Context, context, context. Solution, context.